Good morning everyone, bonjour à tous. Bienvenue pour ce webinaire Anima organisé dans le cadre du projet EPSOMED qui est toujours dans le cycle de webinaires que nous organisons en réaction à cette crise sanitaire que nous connaissons depuis le début de l'année et voir comment nos organisations de développement économique réagissent, comment les pays s'organisent face à cette crise. Welcome to this webinar, which is organized within the EPSOMED project, EU-funded project, in reaction to the sanitary crisis. Since the beginning of the year, we organize every month a webinar to know how agencies, business support organizations, countries organize themselves to face this crisis. We had over 130 registered participants, so obviously they are all not there, but which means that the topic of today is very of interest. On a plus de 130 inscrits pour aujourd'hui, donc ce qui veut dire que le sujet est particulièrement intéressant. Tout le monde n'est pas là, bien entendu, mais ça veut dire que ça va sans doute cliquer pour revoir le webinaire en vidéo après cette session. Je vous propose une petite présentation pour cadrer le webinaire. Je rappelle rapidement les objectifs de ce cycle de webinaires, c'est de partager entre organisations qui sont en charge du développement des entreprises, du développement des investissements, de la promotion des territoires, de partager des expériences, de donner des clés et des réponses sur une thématique d'intérêt. On travaille pour choisir les thématiques du webinaire avec plusieurs agences, plusieurs organisations qui sont membres du réseau Anima, qui sont dans le conseil d'administration d'Anima, notamment Business France, Gafi, l'agence égyptienne de promotion des investissements, et l'agence tunisienne de promotion des investissements, la FIPA, qui nous aident à décider des thématiques qu'on va traiter dans le cadre de ces webinaires. Je salue d'ailleurs Belik Bensontal qui vient d'allumer sa caméra. Voilà, donc c'est présenter des illustrations et puis susciter des discussions, des questions autour de ces sujets dans cette période où on a beaucoup besoin de partager, de s'inspirer les uns des autres. So the objective of this webinar, of these webinars, is to give you keys, answers, good practices on different topics. We choose the topics with a committee of experts which belong to Business France, Gafi, the General Authority for Investment in Egypt, as well as FIPA, the Investment Promotion Agency in Tunisia, and they help us in conducting the topics, the program of these webinars. And obviously, the idea of these webinars is to exchange, to discuss, and to learn from each other in this context of crisis, where we need really to look and to inspire, to get inspired from the others. Next slide. So I'm very glad today that we have this very distinguished panel with us. We have Annette Numa. She's a digital transformation advisor. She's from e-Estonia Briefing Center. You know that Estonia is very much ahead in terms of the digitalization, e-governance, e-administration. She will present everything, but it's very best practice in Europe in terms of digitalization of government and also of the business environment. Donc on a d'abord Annette Numa qui est consultante en digital transformation et qui travaille pour le e-Estonia Briefing Center. L'Estonie, c'est un pays qui est très en avance en Europe sur ces sujets de e-administration, e-gouvernance, digitalisation de l'environnement des affaires. Donc on va voir leur expérience qui a commencé il y a 26 ans, c'est énorme. We also are very glad to have Mr. Yasser Ahmed Abbas. She is the chief of the Investor Service Center at the General Authority for Investment and Free Zone in Egypt. Egypt, Gafi particularly, have made a huge work over the last years to develop and digitalize this Investor Service Center. We will see a movie that shows their experience and the wide range of services they have digitalized. Thank you very much, Mr. Abbas, for being with us. It's very great to have you. Donc, Yasser Ahmed Abbas, qui est le chef du service aux investisseurs centre de services aux investisseurs au GAFI, l'agence de promotion des investissements égyptienne, qui a fait un travail, le GAFI, sur les dernières années, énorme en termes de développement et de digitalisation de ce centre de services aux investisseurs. Et on va voir un film qui va nous montrer justement l'ensemble des services qui ont été digitalisés. Et puis enfin, last but not least, we have the president of the Tunisia Investment Authority, Belir Ben Sultan, who is with us. Thank you very much for being with us, Mr. Ben Sultan, who will show us as well how the Tunisian Investment Authority was prepared over the last year by digitalization a number of services to react to the crisis. And thanks to this preparation, thanks to this platform they had developed over the last year, they have been able to support and to help companies in the special context of sanitary crisis. Donc, on a la chance d'avoir ici avec nous le président de la Tunisia Investment Authority en Tunisie, donc M. Belir Ben Sultan, qui a fait la Tunisian Investment Authority un travail de développement d'une plateforme de services aux investisseurs dont il va nous parler sur les dernières années, et ce qui leur a permis justement de bien réagir et de pouvoir être aux côtés des entreprises pendant cette crise. Voilà, important, on ne veut pas s'arrêter à ces webinaires, c'est sûr qu'on est à distance, mais on veut aller plus loin et on a à notre disposition, grâce au projet EPSOMED, un instrument qu'on appelle peer learning, c'est-à-dire apprentissage mutuel, qui vous permet, si par exemple vous êtes intéressé par l'expérience de Tunisia Investment Authority, de l'Estonie, du GAFI, ou d'autres que vous trouverez dans la chaîne YouTube des bonnes pratiques Anima, de développer un partenariat technique et d'utiliser, de partager l'expertise de ces organisations dans votre
Also, when we think about the
privé est fort, plus l'État sera fort. Et pour connaître comment l'autre organisation est organisée, ça peut prendre la forme d'une petite formation entrepreneuriale de locaux d'une autre. Ça peut prendre la forme d'un projet commun, d'un partenariat.
certificates per market are located in
Instruments de jumelage qui financent 80% des coûts d'expertise ou des coûts de voyage à supporter dans le cadre de ce petit jumelage, de ce petit échange. Déjà vu, c'est Belir Ben Sultan, donc le président, avec un plafond maximum
tout en gardant
100 euros pour la subvention, donc 8 500 euros de budget total, c'est le plafond de ce petit instrument, avec une subvention à 80%, ce qui fait à peu près 6 800 euros. So, to follow up on these webinars, we have scheduled for the 19th of January instrument, which is called the Peer Learning Program. So it's really designed to help your organizations to develop Sultan, which is a joint mission, a short training, or a joint project, a joint partnership. And we support with this instrument 80% of your cost being the travel and accommodation or logistics costs. There is a ceiling of the grant, which is 6,800 euro, which corresponds to 80% of the maximum budget of 8,500 euro. So feel free to contact us. I will put if you can put my email address on the chat, so you can contact me and request such instrument. If you're interested to collaborate with the Tunisian Investment Authority, with GAFI, or with Estonia, after this event, we can put you in contact and try to establish such a partnership and such a peer learning. Voilà. Also, you have access to a library of all the good practices that have been presented during this webinar series. So you go to the Anima website and you will see on the top the YouTube channel, and you can access to all the videos that have been presented, all the presentations that have been done since the beginning of the year within this webinar series. Donc vous pouvez revoir toutes les vidéos, tous les webinaires qu'on a organisés sur la chaîne YouTube d'Anima. Vous allez sur le site d'Anima et vous cliquez en haut sur le petit bouton YouTube et vous allez retrouver toutes les vidéos qui ont été présentées pendant l'année. Let's go. So, je vais commencer en français. C'est évident que le sujet du jour, c'est les e-procédures pour les investisseurs et les entreprises. On va voir comment les pays se sont préparés, parce qu'évidemment, dans cette période de crise qu'on a connue, beaucoup d'organisations ont transféré un certain nombre de services pour servir des entreprises dont les personnels, dont les dirigeants étaient souvent chez eux, bloqués chez eux, du fait des confinements qui ont eu lieu dans tous les pays. Ça ne s'est pas fait en un jour, et on va voir que dans tous les cas qui sont aujourd'hui présentés, qui sont des bonnes pratiques, ça s'est préparé bien des années avant, pas en anticipation de cette crise particulière, mais en anticipation de pouvoir être en capacité de développer des services à distance. Et c'est évident que ça prend encore plus de sens aujourd'hui dans ce contexte où une partie du personnel travaille encore à la maison, où on ne peut pas recevoir autant de personnes qu'on voudrait dans les locaux des administrations. C'est évident que tous ces services de digitalisation ont eu un impact fort pour être aux côtés des entreprises et pouvoir les aider. Donc c'est le but de ce webinaire, c'est de voir avec trois expériences différentes qu'est-ce qui a été fait, et puis on va voir, il y a d'abord les présentations, puis on va discuter après avec chacun des intervenants sur comment ils ont fait, surtout, quand est-ce qu'ils s'y sont mis, quelle gouvernance ils ont mis en place pour mettre en place ces sujets-là, parce qu'évidemment, la digitalisation des services aux entreprises, ça fait appel à, c'est extrêmement transversal, ça fait appel à beaucoup d'intervenants, publics, privés, différentes administrations. Donc comment on met en place un projet comme celui-là? On sera très intéressé par avoir leur feedback, et puis éventuellement la question des moyens techniques, des moyens de l'expertise, sur qui ils se sont appuyés pour pouvoir monter ces projets-là, et avec quel prestataire. Voilà, je ne vais pas aller plus loin sur cette introduction. So obviously, in this context of sanitary crisis, digitalization of services has been key to support companies during the year. We will see with the three experience that this digitalization did not came only this year. It was a preparation over the previous years, not specifically in the context to prepare this sanitary crisis, but to prepare these digital services. And obviously, it has been a very pertinent and very relevant context to support the company during this year. And we will be interesting today in knowing what they have done, obviously Egypt, Tunisia, Estonia, but most importantly how they did, with which means, financial means, expertise, which were their partner, and how they conduct and they constructed they built the governance of this project, because they are ambitious projects, because obviously digitalization of services for companies, it requires to work in a transversal way with different administrations, different stakeholders, and so it will be interesting to know how they did and how they implemented these projects. So I think we can start with the first speaker now. I propose that we start with Annette Numa. She's a digital transformation advisor at the eEstonia Briefing Center, and she will present what she called the virus-proof e-business environment. So how they developed, how this e-business environment contributed for the country to be virus-proof. Donc je traduis. Annette Numa va nous présenter comment l'environnement, enfin la digitalisation de l'environnement des affaires a permis à l'Estonie de passer l'épreuve de ce virus du Covid-19.
Hello to everyone. My name is Annette Numa, and I'm working as a digital transformation advisor at the eEstonia Briefing Center. And I'm sending the best greetings to you from a very sunny, but of course also a very cold Estonia here. Today I'm here to tell you why Estonia was prepared for the crisis that happened back in March and still lasts. I mean, as we see what's happening in the world. So I'm going to give you an overview how prepared Estonia was for the crisis, even though we didn't know that this is going to happen. I'm going to talk about why Estonia is the most digital country in the world today, and what kind of advantages our business sector and investors can have by having these solutions here. So to start with, Estonia started its process of digitalization already 26 years ago. Yes, you heard me right, 26.5 years ago already, when the first document was drafted to Parliament. As some of you know, Estonia have had a very rough historical background. We were under the Soviet Union occupation for many, many years. And of course, also we had many problems, such as corruption, trust that was missing between the government agencies and the citizens. So when we needed to rebuild our entire state from a very, very scratch, then we needed to find ways how to do that differently. And of course, also to focus on getting rid of problems. We thought that digitalization might be the right way to go here. And already since 1994, we have been building these digital services online. So we really didn't need to have the crisis to make us to proceed all these kind of things. Today, 99% of our public services are fully accessible online, so that we can almost do anything online, including also buying the property online, managing your business, establishing your business, doing your tax declarations, and all the other reports which are fully accessible online for every single citizen, and of course also for foreign people by using the e-residency solution, which I will be covering also for a second. One very important thing if a country wants to develop different services online is to, of course, also to provide a very good internet connection all across the state. This is exactly what we have here and what we are still working on to provide even faster internet connections so that people can do also work and study wherever they are in the world, or wherever they are here in Estonia as well. So to do everything remotely. So that people wouldn't only live in the capital cities, but they could also choose places where they actually want to live. So that's a very important aspect here. And all of this has been possible because Estonia introduced in the year 2002 an electronic ID card. So this is a compulsory document for every single person who lives in Estonia. And this gives access to also people who want to run their businesses so that they can have a digital signature. They can also, of course, also do all the reports by just accessing their platforms by using the electronic ID card. And of course, we also have options which we can use by the online, by the other methods such as our smart ID solution, our mobile ID solution, which are based on a phone, so to make this even more convenient than that side. And of course, if a country has 99% of the services working online, especially when we focus on the business sector side, then we have to make sure that our security aspects are provided as well. So Estonia is also the first country in the world who uses blockchain on a national level, which we have been doing already for the past 8 years by now. And we will continue to make sure that our cyberspace is also a safe place to operate for the businesses and for the government agencies as well. Estonia is very unique also because we also don't only have armed forces, but we do also have cyber forces. So again, to make sure that everything is safe and transparent there. One of the reasons why we have been so successful is the 3 pillars aspect, so that we have provided confidentiality, availability, and integrity to all of our citizens. And again, for the businesses, it makes the data exchange much more efficient. So you only have to submit your information for one single time online and one single time only. This is, again, very, very important. Today, 98% of our tax declarations are also issued online, and we're very hardly working on making this working proactively. So that when we have tax declaration time, we wouldn't have to spend this 1 minute on confirming our tax declaration, but we could also just easily also just receive an email from the state that would let me know how much money I will get back from my taxes, and then I would just I wouldn't have to do anything but just to receive the money in the next 2 weeks' time. So this is the amount of time that takes in order to receive our return back to our account. One of the reasons why we managed to get so many people for using these services online, and especially tax declaration here, is because we have made these services very attractive. So this means that if you do things online, it's much faster and it's much cheaper, and especially for the tax declaration side here. So if you declare taxes online, then it takes you 2 weeks time to get the return, and of course the entire process is much quicker. But if you go to Tax and Customs Office and you ask help from there, then it takes around 3 months. So that's a very big difference there. But when the crisis happened, of course, we also realized that we were prepared, as I put it up before, but there were still many, many things to do. And then as we could also see that the number of people that started using the digital signature way or all the online methods has drastically increased by the time of the crisis. But still everyone can operate their business on a normal way. But of course, different cafes, restaurants went over to providing their solutions also over internet, so that you can order your things online. And that's why these kind of supporting systems is 100% have to be there. And not only internally here in Estonia, but we have been helping the world a lot with our solutions. So we have introduced e-residency solution 6 years ago, and 6 years ago this process started where everyone across the world could now also get access to our business environment, our friendly and transparent business environment. So everyone can apply for the e-residency card from all across the world without having to make any physical visits to Estonia. They just fill the background. We will make sure that they're not criminals, that everything is fine with the background, and we'll be sending the e-residency card to the nearest Estonian embassy. And then these people, wherever they live, can go and pick it up from there and start running their business also fully remotely. In order to establish a business, it takes just half an hour, and you do not even need to leave your home. And as I said, there is no need to come over here physically. You can just also use different fintech companies, so you don't even have to have an Estonian bank account for this reason. What we're currently working on as well is to handle the COVID crisis around us. And by the time when the COVID hit Estonia, then we have done a couple of changes also in our system, so to make this entire system more accessible. And before the crisis, when we wanted to buy properties, apartments, then we needed to go to an notary, but quickly we changed this as well, because we realized that this can have a too bad impact on the entire economic system. So we decided to quickly also change the aspect there. And for the future plans, so we're currently working on trying to provide our citizens proactive government services, so that no one would have to reach out to us by themselves, but we could already proactively offer all these different solutions and methods to people who could get access to the services without even having to ask for that. This goes for different benefits mostly, and of course many other things also in a business sector side, so that we also, if you register a business, that you would be in one point able to do absolutely everything, and the information about your employees, reports and everything would be exchanged by institutions that are linked to the case there. And then of course AI will be an important aspect of our future plans, and we'll continue to do also cross-border projects with the other countries, because we know that we have free movement of people, so people like to live and work in different countries, so we want their information to move with them, and of course also pretty much linked to the business sector as well there. So the reason why we have been so successful in this field, and to conclude my presentation side, is because since the very beginning of the days we have realized that all of this is only possible if we work very closely together with our ICT sector and private sector mostly. So we have been especially investing on the cooperation side, and not only doing this between the private and public sector, but of course also 100% including academia to the process. And when all these three sectors work fully together by giving a transparent system that is understandable for everyone, then you of course also attract many people to come and run their business in an environment that they feel trusted, and they feel that this is efficient, and they don't have to waste their time on paperwork, but they can actually relate to everything. So if you want to make this magic happening in your country, all these people are listening today, I would fully suggest you to start working very closely together with the public and private sector side, and don't forget about the universities. They are behind of the innovation side. So I do hope that you're going to enjoy the rest of the conference, and if you have any questions that you want to discuss with Estonia, so you can of course reach out to me, and I would be happy to cover your questions, your concerns. And please try to stay healthy, and let's hope that this crazy time will be over soon, and we can travel and see each other again. So have a wonderful
Annette, are you there? Are you with us?
I'm here. I'm with you. Yes.
Okay, good. So my question is really related to the how you did that. You said you involved a lot the private sector, the ICT sector. You started 26 years ago, so it means that the country has probably made a huge investment in improving this sector, in structuring these companies, in developing an ICT sector, because all what you developed it with Estonian companies. So how could you tell us about this policy and the way you work and you developed the private sector, the ICT sector in Estonia?
So first of all, it's very important to understand that the better the private sector is doing, the better the state is doing, because what's the state without having the private sector supporting? They're paying the taxes. So the very first days we said that we have to make sure that they are having a great time, that they would have a very great environment to operate as well. But since the very early days, we said that we have to come together with all these different sectors, such as private sector, public sector, and of course also academia, and that's the place where we could make a change. So our decision makers pretty much ask the private sector, and then especially the ICT company leaders, to be sitting on the exact same table with them, and then they just basically just show a picture for them what we would need to have by the public sector, and asking from the private sector sense of view if they are able to deliver these solutions for us. And of course, also when we think about the private sector, we or especially as the topic over here is the business environment and all this kind of procedures for the business environment. So what I would suggest and what we have been doing is to especially focus on asking feedback from the private sector leaders, and asking them what exactly do you need, and so the state can actually deliver these things. So I would say that the cooperation and the partnership, which I already brought it up before, has been the key element and will continue to be that way. And of course, I mean, you need to prepare your legal background, and that's why you also need to have academical sector supporting you by the process of giving the advice and so on. So which is concluding this question here on my answer side. It's just a partnership that we need to do and work together as one society.
Oui, je traduis, I will translate, Annette. Depuis le début, votre philosophie, c'est plus le secteur privé est fort, plus l'État sera fort. Et depuis le début, vous avez travaillé ensemble pour essayer de développer cet environnement des affaires, essayer de développer ce secteur avec le secteur privé. Votre recommandation, c'est vraiment de vous appuyer sur le dialogue, le partenariat avec le secteur privé, et notamment de constamment de réunir les leaders du secteur privé et de demander leur feedback. Oui, je crois que Belir Ben Sultan, you had a question as well. If you want to ask it.
Yeah, thank you, Manuel. Just one comment or question. I'd like to learn from Annette. What are the main obstacles, I mean, made during the 26 years in terms of e-governance and so on, not only from the technical side, but most importantly, to hear about the mindset in terms of acceptance of the public institutions as well as the private sector to this program or this project of moving towards digitalization. 26 years ago, maybe even in terms of broadband and so on, it was a bit difficult maybe to advocate, I mean, towards this digitalization process. But again, I mean, I'd like to hear from Annette in terms of mindset. To which extent collaboration and acceptance, I mean, of this process was easy, I mean, to implement or difficult to do so?
Yeah, I'm very, very glad that you brought it out, especially the mindset part, because this is the key element here. When we usually throw a picture, so it's the success story is based 80% of decision making and the mindset part, and then only 20% of technology. It plays a very, very small role, technology side. So I would say that if I could just ask all of you to jump back to 1994, this 26 years ago, when we already signed the first decision, I could just show you a picture of Estonia, and 26 years ago, only 500 people in our entire society had mobile phones. Think about this, 500 people, and the government and the parliament said, okay, guys, we are going to now start building the state of technology, which is pretty crazy, right? And obviously, there was many risky decisions that we needed to make that time, and to again to start with education side. So as you brought it out, especially what was the reaction from the society? How could you prepare the society for these kind of changes? So I'm always saying that try to invest as much as possible to the education, because if you prepare them and raise their awareness and the knowledge how things work, and show them how transparent this entire thing is, then that's the way where you can start preparing your society, and not only the citizens but also the public servants who work for the state, who have to be behind of these solutions and serving these solutions. So I'm always saying that we might have done the best decision, especially by doing many investments of raising the awareness. And we also had a project which was called Look at the Word, where we were also educating the elderly people how to use the services. So so you have to include everyone. You can't leave anyone behind when you want to introduce these kind of things. But the government side, our former president, Mr. Ilves, he said a very wonderful sentence, and he said Estonia was like a startup in that sense, that we were willing to take a little bit more risky decisions than anyone else. And as I said to you, we had a rough historical background, so we really didn't have anything to lose, but so much to win. So the attitude was to make more risky decisions, and our politicians were not sitting in a government or in a parliament just thinking, okay, we have to think through all these kind of things that the risks that we might have. No, I mean, we have to try it out. And if we are going to succeed, then it's going to be wonderful, and everyone are going to notice us. And especially if you are such a small country than Estonia is, and we don't have any natural resources, the only resource that we can offer to people is our smartness, our intelligence, and just the mindset side. So that's where the focus went on. And if I could suggest something to you, then to be a little bit more brave, and especially for decision makers to take more risky decisions, because that's the only way where you can make the change. If you're going to be sitting in your comfort zone and worrying about all these mistakes that can happen, then I'm sorry to tell you, but you're never going to succeed. So it's all about the mindset. It's about being open-minded. It's about making hard but maybe successful decisions. So this is my advice for you.
I will translate. Donc, Beir Ben Solta demandait quels étaient les obstacles, et notamment en matière de culture, d'état d'esprit de la société, puisqu'il y a 26 ans, effectivement, il y avait des enjeux d'équipement en infrastructure, mais au cours de toutes ces années, quels ont pu être les obstacles qu'a rencontré l'Estonie. Évidemment, Annette dit que c'était un élément particulièrement clé. En gros, pour elle, c'est 20% de technologie et 80% de volonté, ce projet. À l'époque, quand ils ont commencé, il y avait que 500 personnes qui étaient abonnées du téléphone, donc il y avait tout à faire. Et quand le Parlement a dit devenons une nation technologique, c'était pas gagné. Il n'y avait pas tellement de fondamentaux pour construire là-dessus. Il a fallu préparer la société. Donc ces recommandations, c'est vraiment de travailler, d'éduquer, de montrer, d'associer tout le monde dans ces initiatives, tous les composants de la société, dans les écoles, dans les universités, la société civile, enfin voilà, d'essayer d'associer tout le monde. Et elle cite l'attitude générale, hein, qui est vraiment une attitude de preneur de risque. Elle a dit le mot brave en disant que le de l'Estonie avait dit on de toute façon on n'a rien à perdre, on a tout à gagner, on a que à gagner dans cette aventure, donc prenons des décisions risquées pour mettre en œuvre ça. Donc c'est une attitude particulièrement entrepreneuriale de l'État estonien dans cette démarche. So we have other question. Marco Cuneto, you want to speak? To raise your question, please?
Hello, do you hear me, Emmanuel?
Yes, perfect.
Good morning, everyone. So my question, I was very curious about the experience of the Estonia, in a way that there can be also a kind of replicability of best practices in the southern neighborhood countries, which are the main targets of the EPSMENT project. So my questions to Annette was, has the Estonia Briefing Center conducted some consulting missions or guided, for example, organizations or business support organizations or governments of the southern neighborhood countries?
Yeah, so we do a lot of consulting side. The main point of the Estonia Briefing Center in general is to especially to provide this kind of consulting part to introduce our story and then to consult different government agencies across the world, from all across the world. That's what I would say, and of course also to promote our ICT companies because our main point, as I told you as well, that was that we have been working fully together with the ICT companies. They have been behind of these solutions, providing us the solutions, and why we are working there is to promote them and to help the other governments to take the same steps and by having the help from our ICT companies, because I mean you can find the same technology companies in your own countries or anywhere else that will be closer to you, but especially why we are recommended Estonian companies is because they have experience more than 25 years now by providing us these solutions. So that's something that is very, very, very essential there, and we would be very happy to help each of you if anyone would have any kind of specific interest, questions, whatever. You can easily reach out to us, to the briefing center. You can find all the contacts from the eEstonia platform, and we would be happy to help you guide through all these processes, whatever is your topic, either it's the e-business sector, e-health, whatever else. So we fully provide this kind of consulting activities as well.
Donc la question de Marco, est-ce que l'Estonie ou le e-briefing center offre des services de consultance, et notamment est-ce qu'ils peuvent travailler au sud de la Méditerranée? Bien évidemment, d'y répond Annette que c'est possible. Et non seulement il y a l'accompagnement, les conseils, la stratégie qu'ils peuvent amener, mais elle le fait déjà sur certains pays. Elle n'a pas cité d'exemple, mais apparemment elle le fait. Elle le fait aussi en partenariat et en association avec des entreprises estoniennes. Alors bien sûr, chaque pays a son tissu d'entreprises du digital, du numérique, mais l'expérience des entreprises estoniennes, avec 26 ans de recul, fait que souvent elles travaillent avec des entreprises estoniennes qui viennent accompagner les missions de conseil. On a une question de Adel Chaban. Monsieur Adel, si vous voulez prendre la parole.
Oui, bon, thank you. I'm a partner of Mazar, an auditing and consulting company. So, Annette, please, can you explain about the governance of digitalization? Do you have a Mr. or Madam digitalization, and to talk about the back office? So, please.
What exactly do you mean? Do you mean organizations for this digitalization, the governance side, or what was exactly what you had?
The architecture of the body who is in charge of digitalization in Estonia.
All right. So the main job is actually happening from the Ministry of Economics and Communication. We do have this innovation and digitalization team there. They're responsible for all the strategies and this entire project. But we do also have in almost every ministry an innovation center. So we have been trying to also divide this responsibility by different organizations and ministries, because every single ministry knows better what exactly they need, what kind of services do they need, and what are the plans. But the Ministry of Economics and Communication is the central one, and they are especially building this kind of frameworks mostly. Mr. Siim Sikkut, I would say, might be one of the biggest guys, the most important guys right now behind this innovation and the plans for the future. But of course, his entire team is doing a fantastic job in order to also change different things. But yeah, again, another recommendation. I like to make recommendations, as you have understood, I guess, here, is to again to divide the responsibility, because there can't be just one institution who can cover everything. So it will be just a little bit more essential to divide this responsibility and to make sure that that everyone are keeping up with this innovation and would share their ideas as well. But yeah.
Thank you.
La question qui portait sur la gouvernance, qu'est-ce qui mène ça, quel est l'organe et l'organisation qui mène ça. En fait, tout se passe au niveau du ministère de l'économie et de la digitalisation qui pilote l'intégralité du processus, nous répondait Annette. There was also a reaction from Ramzi Gara on the chat, saying that the investment agency for Estonia won the UN Investment Promotion Awards in 2020 for their excellent response to the COVID-19. So, and also you were apparently Estonia was the digital transformation of Estonia was also a topic of presentation for the Union for the Mediterranean conference recently, is saying Marco Cuneto. So definitely you are in Estonia a very interesting and good practice to inspire other countries in Europe and beyond on the other side of the Mediterranean. Thank you very much, Annette, for the very inspiring presentation. Keep in touch. If some of you wants to get in touch with Annette, we will convey the messages and put you in contact. Si vous voulez être en relation avec Annette, n'hésitez pas à nous demander. On vous mettra en contact pour la suite. Voilà. Et encore une fois, grand merci à Annette pour cette intervention particulièrement intéressante. Thank you, Annette.
Thank you from my side as well. There was one question I just quickly answered that one. They were asking how many days register a company in Estonia. It takes half an hour, not a day, just half an hour. So you're welcome to register a company in Estonia. But thank you so much and merci beaucoup and have a nice day.
Voilà, on vous rappelle, Annette nous rappelle que ça prend 30 minutes d'enregistrer une compagnie en Estonie. Bon, c'est pas tout d'enregistrer sa compagnie. Après, il faut faire un bon business. Donc voilà. Très bien. On va passer à la deuxième intervention qui est un film, et ensuite on aura la chance de pouvoir discuter avec monsieur Yasser Ahmed Abbas, qui est le directeur du service de centre d'investissement au GAFI en Égypte. So we now go to the next speaker, which is Yasser Ahmed Abbas, the director for the investment service center in GAFI, Egypt. And we will first show a movie, a short film of what they have done at the GAFI.
As a part of the global community, we are capable of overcoming challenges. COVID-19 obliged the whole world to go digital and distanced. Egypt has been working on transforming its governmental and business community services to an electronic digitalized one before coronavirus to cope with the world's latest technologies. But its real time has arrived to get the best use of it. GAFI is a proactive investment promotion agency and regulator with several functions. that ease the way for domestic and international investors who are interested in opportunities presented by Egypt's growing economy. Its mandate includes, but are not limited to, investment promotion and facilitation, business matchmaking, investor aftercare, dispute settlement, research and market intelligence. We as Gafi started to work on the idea of the digital transformation since 2014 in order to help in the economic transformation Egypt has undertaken and achieved sustainable economic growth. In 2017, Gafi has started to apply the architect of digital transformation with two giant technologies, IBM and Microsoft, in the Investor Service Center, Free Zones, the Entrepreneur Center of Fikretek Shirketek, and Egypt's investment map. Gafi is the regulatory body of any joint stock, limited liability, and sole proprietary companies. Incorporation of these companies are conducted at Gafi, which has the role of authenticating the General Assembly's and Board of Directors meeting minutes. The Investor Service Center is a one-stop shop that serves investors with a multitude of services, including company incorporation, merge, demerge, and liquidations, including representatives of 67 ministries and official entities. ISAC Investor Service Center has the authority to issue all the required certificates, permits, and licenses under the provisions of the Investment Law of Egypt. Investor Service Center are deploying across Egypt to reduce centralization of government services and expedite investment. Its headquarters located in Cairo, and 11 other service branches are located in Alexandria, Asyut, Ismailia, 6th of October, Gamasa, 10th of Ramadan, Qina, Port Said, Minya, South Sinai, and Suhak. The Investor Service Center has been moving towards greater digitalization. It's equipped with the most advanced technologies and work systems to reduce bureaucracy and facilitate investment procedures for all investors. It's adopting an automation strategy and offering online operations and services for investors to complete their business processes remotely from wherever they exist in one single day instead of so many weeks as follows: automating investment services as establishment, ratification of General Assembly meeting, ratification of a board meeting, company amendments. Investors can perform all these online services by registering and creating an online account on Gafi's portal, then proceeding to the selected services. Electronic payment system through Gafi's portal and point of sales machines. Representatives of ministries and entities have activated Gafi's electronic services system, the e-service system, by integrating their work systems and databases with Gafi's e-service system and database. Electronic signature. Gafi is one of the pioneering governmental entities which has initiated this service. All generated legal documents that require signature of the business owners or lawyers are signed electronically in order to guarantee a complete online generation process for the investor. E-payment system is also there. 3 different banks from the largest banks in the market are located in ISAC, the Investment Service Center, aiming at facilitating investment procedures and the process of issuing incorporation certificates. Through the one-stop shop, also enjoying the most recent e-banking and e-payment services, electronic archiving system also, electronic connectivity and integration with governmental entities, the call center on 16035 that answer customers frequently their inquiries and providing them with any technical support that needed through online registration process, queuing system, monitoring and evaluation system, customer satisfaction feedback, interactive screens for displaying of procedures, laws, documents, and fees, e-library that contains laws, regulations, and promotional brochures on investment projects. Digitalization is urged during coronavirus pandemic time in order not to suspend the daily work life cycle for investor businesses and to avoid overcrowding in ISAC. A new service has been launched to enable investors book an ISAC appointment online through Gafi's website. The investors will have to arrive to Gafi's premises 15 minutes before the appointment time after having prepared the required documents. They will have their temperature checked in line with the precautionary measures taken to curb the ongoing coronavirus outbreak before proceeding to their appointment. Digitizing the certificate of non-confusion of company name, which is required before the establishment processes. Investor now can check online whether the name he chose for his company is available or it's similar with some other companies and make reservation for this name. Gafi also issued a decree to temporarily allow virtual attendance of General Assembly meetings for companies. Free zones. Free zones are one of the distinguished investment patterns where you can establish, set up, and start your own project under the umbrella of Gafi's investment incentive law. A free zone is a part of the state land that exists within its political boundaries and subjected to its administrative authority. We developed web and mobile interface for Gafi free zones investors to enable them submit their requests online. The web and mobile services integrated with consolidated database and workflow system at the back end to ensure the end-to-end process automation. The need of this phase is to improve and enhance the services provided for free zone investors, reduce manual work, preserve data integrity, and create new communication channels through web and mobile applications. This phase is already working in Port Said Free Zone, and it will be applied to the rest free zones very soon. فكرتك شركتك. Entrepreneurship and innovation are important drivers for the development of Egyptian economy and its competitiveness through youth empowerment, economic growth, and employment generation. Youth represents the majority of the demographic bulge, with 52% of Egyptians under the age of 24 and with only 4% over the age of 65, making it one of the most youthful populations in the whole world. Hence, developing the entrepreneurial ecosystem in Egypt is critical. فكرتك شركتك is a nationwide initiative under the umbrella of the General Authority for Investment in Free Zones to promote entrepreneurship awareness and provide full packages of support to entrepreneurs and startups in different stages. It delivers key startup and business solutions to the community by tapping on its network of startups and industry partners to support the establishment and operations of successful entrepreneurial ventures. It's a place where potential entrepreneurs can get services that include, but are not limited to, access to finance, information about available funding opportunities, whether through equity or debt financing, company establishment, legal consultation for entrepreneurs on different types of companies and the suitable form of their ideas and team with all requirements to establish their companies. Government relations support. Connect entrepreneurs and startups with decision makers in different entities in the government. Moreover, available resources to startups that are provided by the government. Trainings and workshops, providing wide range of tailored training sessions, boot camps, hackathons to entrepreneurs and startups. Mentorship for startups. The center provides one-on-one mentorship for startups and entrepreneurs to support entrepreneurs validate their business ideas, accelerate the startup growth, and overcome any challenges they might face. Capacity building, partnership programs, and a co-working space for entrepreneurs. During the lockdown, the services provided by Fikretek Shirketek were all streamlined online. Workshops and boot camps were booked and delivered online through Zoom. Several boot camps were held in cooperation with entities like the Ministry of Youth and Sports to enact out cooperation protocols. During lockdown, about 8 boot camps were held through Zoom application. Fikretek Shirketek launched the Online Entrepreneurship School, which is a series of episodes covering the basics of entrepreneur and are delivered live or on Facebook page. The school is currently running on its 4th round with over 30 episodes and a reach spanning more than 60,000 viewers. Since the lockdown started in March 2020 until today, Fikretek Shirketek's reach has multiplied to more than tenfold. The geographic coverage spanned to include all the 27 governorates of Egypt. 84 training programs were provided to more than 67,000 beneficiaries. 529 online mentorship sessions were delivered to about 900 entrepreneurs. This achievement represents an increase of more than 900% with the average monthly reach of the Fikretek Shirketek services due to online streaming. Egypt's investment map. The investment map of Egypt is the investor's gate to invest in Egypt. It displays all what investors need during their journey in Egypt. It directs the investors to how they can establish their companies in Egypt online, displaying the exact procedures, documents, and fees required, showcasing investment opportunities available for investment and the aftercare services provided. The map is an electronic geosectoral promotional tool used to showcase all Egypt's investment opportunities with their real exact locations across Egypt's 27 governorates in all economic sectors available for investment, being either an SME opportunity or a mega project. Its methodology depends on engaging all the business community stakeholders and sustaining best solutions based on knowledge sharing, It aims to relocate Egypt on the global investment map, providing a 360-degree view on the investment climate in Egypt, which includes all business environment updates, investment-related legislative framework, regulations, incentives, and sector and government rate fact sheets. As a result of the successful efforts, the investment map has been awarded the best e-governmental portal in 2019. E-reserving and e-payment services of investment opportunities have been of a great benefit to investors during Corona pandemic time. Investors had an online bid through the map on industrial lands and complexes in different economic industries across Egypt government rates twice in 2020. All procedures of opportunity reservation, deposit payment, request for proposal purchase, and application submission have been successfully done online through the map. Gavi is continuously committed to enhancing and reforming Egypt's investment climate by channeling investors' feedback to government agencies, adopting new investment regimes, supporting entrepreneurship as main driver for economic sustainable growth, and finding best green solutions that could best serve our investors using the most advanced technologies coping the new digitalized world.
Thank you very much, and congratulations for this very extensive movie presenting the huge effort and huge array of services that you have developed in Egypt, from the e-administration to the services for the entrepreneurs, and also this investment map, which is very, very interesting. I would like to remind that the investment map, we did a specific session to present it. It was back in April or May, and you can access the video of Mrs. Ola El Kobrosi from on our YouTube channel to review precisely how they did this investment map by investigating the projects in the regions, the investment opportunities, and promoting them online. Donc bravo et merci pour cette vidéo très impressionnante de tous les services qu'a pu développer le GAFI pour les investisseurs, les entrepreneurs, également cette investment map qui met en valeur les opportunités d'investissement dans le pays. Et il y a une vidéo qui existe sur la chaîne YouTube d'Anima qui avait présenté Madame Ola El Kobrosi, la Deputy Executive Director du GAFI. Et donc, elle est disponible. Vous pourrez voir comment ils ont construit cette offre en faisant remonter du terrain les opportunités d'investissement qui existaient dans tout le pays et en mettant ça en ligne. Are there any questions for Mr. Yasser Ahmed Abbas? Welcome, Mr. Abbas. You can open your video and if you want.
According to the local time, I will say good afternoon to you, Balir and Annette, and all the ladies and gentlemen around the table and through the Zoom conference. I'm happy to be with you in the panel. And through the movie you've just watched, I think that you saw that there is a great development in our investment environment. We've started by 2016, according to the administration of President Sisi, and we are a part of it, to facilitate issues and perform a proper environment and a platform to the investor to come and take the challenge and start to invest in Egypt. We've worked earlier before the COVID-19. So when it came 2019, with the epidemic COVID-19, actually we found ourselves a little bit ready to face this problem. As the movie you've watched, that we've initiated 12 investment service centers all around the government to facilitate the life and ease the life of the investor and his representative, to find a place close to his home to come and finish his services, and at the same time would work parallel to be online offering the services. Let me tell you that 70% or more we are offering through the online service in order to keep the investor or his representative away from coming to the facility. We've worked in different channels. Let me tell you also that the law when was issued by 2017, which state in one of the articles that we have to move to the automation system and to be part of the globalization, to have the same concepts, to talk with the international community with the same manner by using the electronic platforms. So we found ourselves a little bit ready to deal with the epidemic coronavirus. I'm ready to ask any question. I'll be glad to hear it, and I will give you the answer as much as I can.
Thank you. I will just translate shortly, make a résumé in French. Donc, tout ça, ça a commencé en 2016 en Égypte, et en 2017, il y a eu une loi qui a invité le GAFI, mais le pays en gros à aller vers l'automatisation des services et vers la digitalisation des services et l'inclusion plus forte d'Égypte dans la globalisation. Et pour faire très court, hein, parce que vous avez écouté tout ce que Monsieur Abbas a dit, mais en gros aujourd'hui 70% des services sont fournis par le biais du digital. My question to you, Mr. Abbas, was how is the governance of this? Because obviously there is so many services, so probably many administrations are involved, many areas in Egypt are involved. How did you pilot this, and how do you govern this today? The fact that the services are still up to date, that all the chain of actors is reacting according to the delays and to the quality of service you want to have. How do you manage this?
Well, thank you very much for this very important question. Let me tell you that we are hosting in the Investment Service Center 68 different entities from different ministers and different authorities. They are all located here in the Investment Service Center, and they are having all the authority to issue their approvals, which they are they have full authority from their authorities, ministers, to give the licenses and the approvals. This is the first issue. The second is the Article 21 in the new investment law had given us the power, if the authority which is located here is not having the power to issue the approval within a certain period of time, GAFI is supposed to offer the approval instead of it.
Oh, thank you. I'll translate. Donc, il y a 68 organisations qui sont impliquées dans tous ces services qui ont été évoqués dans le film. Ils sont tous localisés dans le Investment Service Center. On a compris qu'il y en a au Caire, mais aussi dans plusieurs et de nombreux gouvernorats dans toute l'Égypte. Donc normalement, ces organisations, elles sont dans le centre et elles ont autorité sur leur mission et les autorisations qu'elles donnent ou les facilités administratives qu'elles offrent. Il y a une loi qui est passée, un article de loi, alors je ne sais pas si ça date de 2017 dans la même loi, mais en tout cas c'est un article 21 qui donne au GAFI la possibilité de se substituer à l'autorité qui est basée dans son centre de service d'investisseurs si cette organisation ne donne pas les autorisations ou le service nécessaire dans les délais. Le GAFI peut se substituer et fournir cette autorisation à sa place. Alors, Belir Ben Sultan, you had a question.
Merci, Emmanuel. Juste une petite question rapidement. Est-ce que le ministère de l'investissement égyptien existe toujours? Et si c'est non, disons, quels étaient les arguments pour donner beaucoup plus de pouvoir à la GAFI qu'au ministère, donc déjà inexistant, si j'ose dire.
Bah, je crois qu'il existe encore. En tout cas, la dernière nouvelle, il y avait une ministre. The question of Mr. Belir is about the existence of the Ministry of Investment. He's asking if the ministry still exists and how you separate the prerogatives between the ministry and Gafi.
C'est une difficult question. Well, I'm going to answer in English. Actually, the minister is still available in the box of the structure of the ministries, and the Prime Minister himself is having the power to direct the Gafi, and he's the. Let me tell you that he's the minister of Gafi as long as there is no minister available.
Okay.
So the chairman of Gafi is presenting all issues that needed the minister's signature.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Abbas, and congratulations again for this great film to the team of Gafi and for you and the service center for this tremendous work that you are implementing. We keep in touch, and obviously, if you want to be in contact, the participants with Mr. Abbas and the team at Gafi will be happy to play the go-between. Si vous voulez rentrer en contact avec le Gafi, savoir partager avec eux, savoir comment ils ont fait, on sera ravis de vous mettre en relation avec eux. On va passer au troisième intervenant qu'on a déjà vu, c'est Belir Ben Soltan, donc le président de la Tunisia Investment Authority, qui nous fait l'amitié d'être avec nous aujourd'hui. Alors, la Tunisia Investment Authority est une organisation qui est plus jeune, vous allez nous dire ça, bien entendu. On va d'abord, mais qui a mis en place ces services aussi, cette digitalisation des services, et on va voir comment cette année ça s'est révélé particulièrement judicieux d'avoir préparé ça les années précédentes. On va d'abord passer la vidéo de Belir Ben Soltan. Belir Ben Soltan, the chairman of the Tunisia Investment Authority, which is a rather new organization, but they are, for a few words, he will tell us. But they had already prepared a number of digital services, and we will see with the short video that we will display first how these services have been very particularly relevant in this context of the crisis, and then we will have an exchange with Mr. Belir Ben Soltan.
Bonjour à toutes et à tous. Tout d'abord, je suis très ravi de prendre part à ce webinaire et je tiens à remercier sincèrement toute l'équipe Anima pour cette invitation. Pour commencer, je voudrais présenter rapidement l'ATIA, si vous me permettez. Donc, c'est l'instance tunisienne de l'investissement sous l'appellation anglaise Tunisia Investment Authority. L'instance a été créée en 2017 et devenue opérationnelle à partir du 2 janvier 2019. L'ATIA joue ainsi le rôle d'interlocuteur unique de l'investisseur privé aussi bien tunisien qu'étranger, et elle intervient sur toute la chaîne de valeur Invest, de la veille et la prospection jusqu'au service d'aftercare. Donc, nous couvrons tous les secteurs d'activité, de l'industrie, services, agriculture, tourisme et également les projets intégrés et les projets d'intérêt national. Donc, de ce fait, nous offrons une large palette de services afin de faciliter le parcours de l'investisseur dans toutes les étapes. Il s'agit donc d'une instance transverse qui conseille et accompagne les promoteurs ou bien les porteurs de projets pour la concrétisation de leurs opérations d'investissement et d'extension. Je dois également signaler que depuis sa création, la TIA a misé sur le digital. Donc, et nous avons pu avancer rapidement en matière de digitalisation de la plupart de nos services, dont l'objectif est de faciliter la mise en place de projets en consacrant le principe de transparence et de simplification des procédures afin de surmonter les obstacles auxquels sont confrontés les investisseurs. Notre vision à la TIA étant de trouver des solutions adaptées à travers des canaux de communication directs avec les investisseurs et en tenant compte de leurs préoccupations sur les démarches nécessaires. Autrement dit, notre objectif principal consiste à digitaliser les services à fort impact positif sur le parcours investisseur, tels que les autorisations, par exemple, la déclaration des projets, la constitution juridique, l'octroi des avantages et aussi la résolution des problématiques, le cas échéant. Tous ces services sont disponibles aujourd'hui à partir de notre plateforme digitale tia.gov.tn, tout en garantissant le respect des normes de sécurité et de traçabilité. Cette démarche a été confirmée pendant la crise Covid-19, qui a rendu indispensable la transformation digitale et même son accélération non seulement en Tunisie, mais dans le monde entier. Pendant la période du confinement, nous avons œuvré primo à assurer la continuité de nos services via les canaux digitaux et aussi grâce à une équipe TIA jeune, très motivée et aussi consciente des différents challenges que notre métier et notre pays font face aujourd'hui. À titre d'exemple et de manière pratique et concrète, la TIA a pu, grâce à sa plateforme digitale, pendant près de 6 semaines de confinement, durant le premier semestre de l'année en cours, délivrer une dizaine de déclarations d'investissement pour une enveloppe aussi importante en termes de coûts d'investissement et de postes d'emploi créés. Nous avons également pu intervenir pour la résolution de pas mal de situations d'urgence, bien évidemment, pour le compte d'entreprises étrangères et tunisiennes. Si la TIA n'était pas prête sur ce plan, en digitalisant la quasi-majorité de ses services, on n'aurait peut-être pas pu gérer au mieux cette situation de crise. En d'autres termes, la chance ne sourit qu'aux esprits préparés, dixit Louis Pasteur. Donc, notre plateforme digitale s'inscrit bien entendu dans le cadre d'un projet national qui est censé être généralisé auprès de tous les acteurs de l'écosystème dans notre pays. Encore une fois, l'objectif consiste à simplifier les procédures et raccourcir les délais au profit des investisseurs, consacrer le principe de transparence et de célérité dans le traitement des dossiers, permettre aux investisseurs et aux entreprises de suivre à distance le processus de traitement, échanger les différents documents disponibles ou émis par les structures publiques en termes d'informations et de données entre elles, et in fine, avancer sur la question principale qui est l'interopérabilité à travers des systèmes d'information intégrés et également dans l'objectif d'améliorer le climat d'investissement et de la compétitivité de la destination Tunisie. Sans plus tarder, je tiens encore une fois à exprimer mes vifs remerciements à toute l'équipe Anima pour cette opportunité. Merci beaucoup.
Merci, Monsieur Ben Sultan. Je pense que vous pouvez rallumer votre caméra. Thank you very much, Mr. Bedir Ben Sultan. Ma question, elle sera un peu de la même veine que celle que j'ai posée à l'intervenant précédent, c'est comment vous avez mis en place ce projet, quoi. Quelle équipe s'est mise en place? Comment avez-vous géré la transversalité avec l'ensemble des intervenants au sein de l'administration? Et aujourd'hui, comment vous pilotez ce travail?
Merci, Miguel. Donc, c'est pas un exercice aussi facile. Donc, c'est le cas pour l'Estonie. Donc, vous voyez, ça a pris presque un quart de siècle donc pour arriver à ce que l'Estonie est aujourd'hui. Donc, bon, l'ATIA a démarré effectivement à partir du 2 janvier 2019 à mettre en place donc cette stratégie digitale au sein de l'instance. Bon, c'est un projet porté par la présidence du gouvernement en matière de digitalisation. Donc, on fait pas un peu l'exception. Donc, il faut des décisions à haut niveau donc pour avancer dans ce sens-là. C'est un projet également géré par le ministère de l'économie et des finances en concertation et en collaboration étroite avec le ministère des TIC. Donc, il y a pas mal de chantiers là-dessus. Bien évidemment, est concerné par la digitalisation du process, donc du parcours investisseur, en regroupant. Donc, l'objectif principal, c'est d'abord de simplifier ce process-là, ce parcours, le digitaliser. Mais avant ça, il faut également harmoniser toutes les procédures et toutes les questions derrière. Donc, il y a un effort gigantesque à travers donc la collaboration étroite avec d'autres partenaires, aussi bien sur la centrale qu'au niveau régional. Donc, ça, c'est un exercice très important. Voilà, donc c'est ça un peu, si j'ose dire, un peu la gouvernance actuelle en matière de digitalisation du parcours investisseur. Actuellement, nous avons à peu près 6 services déjà digitalisés. On y travaille d'arrache-pied sur 3 autres, donc espérant pour le premier trimestre 2021, ils seront disponibles. Annette, tout à l'heure, a parlé de tout ce qui touche, par exemple, à la carte de séjour. Donc, on est très avancé dans ce sens. Ce sont des services d'appoint, mais qui sont des services très importants à nos clients. L'affiliation à la sécurité sociale également. Donc, il y a pas mal de petits services, mais qui comptent beaucoup pour les clients, donc aussi bien pour les Tunisiens que les étrangers, donc dans ce sens-là. Il y a l'autre service au niveau de l'offre foncière, donc on avance également très rapidement. Et pour en finir avec le troisième, c'est l'interaction avec les régions. Donc, c'est l'interaction centrale-région pour mieux vendre un peu les opportunités d'investissement qui existent dans les régions. Le marketing territorial, c'est un élément primordial et étoffer un peu l'offre Tunisie vis-à-vis donc les investisseurs potentiels et comment mettre ces opportunités sur la table au bon moment et de la meilleure manière, donc dans ce sens-là.
Très bien, je vais traduire en anglais. So all this started, this digitalization strategy in January 2019. It was a government strategy, so it needed this high-level push to be successful, according to Mr. Ben Sultan. It involves the Ministry of Economy and Finance. It's also coordinated with the Ministry of the ICT, and so TIA was part of this strategy and had to digitalize the journey of the investors and the services for the investors. So it was indeed a huge work in terms of not only developing the digital services, but harmonizing the procedures, coordinating with other parties, notably in the regions at the national level, but also in each region. So it was a quite important work. Today they have already 6 digitalized services available and running. 3 are expected for the first quarter of 2020. Among the services that are coming is sort of a residence permit, which is very important for the investors, or short-term residence permit, social security, land offers and land booking and availability, important, and also more marketing services to develop opportunities in the regions. So the coordination in the region is something they are really concerned today, and trying to develop a bit like Egypt, I would say, a sort of portfolio of opportunities in the regions in Tunisia. Thank you. Are there other questions? Est-ce qu'il y a d'autres questions pour Monsieur Ben Sultan? Donc, ça a été fait intégralement par des entreprises tunisiennes pour toute la digitalisation, et avec un projet géré en interne par l'administration, par la TIA et l'administration tunisienne. Hein, c'est bien ça?
Effectivement, Manuel. Donc, c'était avec l'appui de Microsoft d'abord, et avec Microsoft, donc 2 antennes dont nous sommes extrêmement fiers. Donc, l'une des 2 est une start-up. Donc, ça, c'est très important. Donc, les start-up tunisiennes confirment leur expertise, leur savoir-faire, et on est très, très content, encore une fois, donc, dans ce sens-là.
Okay. So my question was about who was involved in this project. The Tunisian companies, and is it the administration? So yes, it's the administration who was pilot the project, but it was done with Microsoft along with 2 Tunisian companies, including a startup, and it's a pride for Belir, for Tunisia to be able to develop this with a startup. Il y a une question de Monsieur Wannes qui demande quel est l'impact de ce travail aujourd'hui pour l'investissement en Tunisie. Tout à l'heure, le GAFI, dans son film, disait que grâce à l'investment map, il y a des investisseurs qui ont pu réserver des terrains ou se positionner sur des opportunités. Est-ce que vous avez senti la digitalisation, ça a permis au business et à l'investissement, en particulier à la promotion de l'investissement, de continuer?
Je dirais l'impact, il est là. Donc, l'impact, c'est essentiellement jouer sur l'élément confiance. Donc, il faut mettre nos clients en confiance à travers une communication directe, rapide et importante. Donc, là où ils trouvent leur compte pour n'importe quelle question. Donc, s'il s'agit d'une déclaration, donc, c'était mentionné un petit peu au niveau de mon intervention tout à l'heure. Donc, pendant la période du confinement de 6 semaines, donc, on a pu délivrer une dizaine de déclarations d'investissement. L'une d'elles, donc, a pu, à partir de ce document-là, sécuriser une levée de fonds déjà engagée, mais qui doit être confirmée pendant cette période. Donc, on a eu pas mal de retours très positifs de nos clients. Et c'est ça l'essentiel. Donc, c'est une communication transparente, directe. S'il y a des blocages de n'importe quelle, disons, catégorie, donc on doit les traiter ensemble. Si c'est oui, on avance. Si c'est pas le cas, donc on doit revoir notre démarche. Donc, c'est vrai, l'impact, il est là, surtout pour nos clients qui sont à distance. Donc, s'ils sont au sud du pays, ou bien dans d'autres coins, c'est pas la peine de se déplacer et perdre une journée ou 2 pour venir à la capitale déposer leur dossier. C'est au contraire, donc on les invite et on invite tous nos clients à créer leur compte sur la plateforme et échanger et suivre leur dossier. Donc, et ça, c'est très important.
Donc, la question de M. Wannes, sorry, the question of Mr. Wannes was, what is the impact of this digitalization on investment deal flow in Tunisia? Because I also mentioned that during the movie we've seen with GAFI, apparently some investors were able to book some land through the investment map, so which means that during this COVID-19 crisis, these digital services allowed the investment to be pursued. So Mr. Bedir Ben Sultan answers that the first impact is about trust and trust relationship that is continued with clients, with the existing investors. So that pursue the link, keep the link with them, and especially for those who were a bit away from Tunis. So either because they are abroad or either because they are in the regions. It made them easier to register, to continue their projects through the places. He has seen over this period of lockdown 10 declaration of investment, including one which managed to secure an investment and to secure the raising of the funds during this period. So thank you. Is there any more question for Mr. Ben Sultan? I don't think so. Donc, je crois qu'il n'y a pas d'autres questions. Merci beaucoup, Monsieur Ben Sultan, d'avoir été avec nous. Bravo pour le travail parcouru et puis pour la suite, pour les nouveaux services à mettre en ligne dans les prochains mois. Je rappelle, si vous voulez être en lien avec la TIA et échanger vos expériences avec eux ou bénéficier de leur expérience, on vous mettra en contact et vous pouvez toujours utiliser le petit instrument de jumelage. I remind you that if you want to be in contact with TIA, we will do the go-between to develop a collaboration. On va passer à la conclusion, je pense, de ces webinaires. Donc moi, ce que je retiens quand même de vos échanges, c'était riche, c'est qu'en gros, ça ne date pas d'aujourd'hui. Votre travail, il a démarré il y a bien des années. Au-delà de la facilitation que ça permet, de la facilitation des flux d'investissement que ça peut permettre, je crois que cette notion est importante, cette notion d'image, de confiance et de marketing, enfin de marketing positif que ça génère pour le pays, que ce soit pour l'Estonie ou pour l'Égypte ou pour la Tunisie, est une dimension qui est assez importante. Voilà, donc je pense que et effectivement, on voit une politique à chaque fois qui est venue du haut, c'est-à-dire pour faire bouger tous ces acteurs, pour changer les états d'esprit, pour assurer cette transversalité, cette coordination entre les différents intervenants. C'est venu d'une loi, d'une décision du gouvernement, d'un mouvement qui a été lancé. Donc c'est important de s'inscrire dans une démarche un peu nationale. Voilà, il y a une petite réaction de Ramzi Gara qui dit: les pouvoirs publics doivent être conscients des enjeux sur la table et donner plus de flexibilité aux autorités en charge de l'investissement pour agir. Effectivement, mais elles doivent leur donner la légitimité. Elles doivent leur donner la légitimité pour avancer. Donc les séminaires à venir, on a 2 séminaires déjà programmés. Un séminaire qui aura lieu en janvier sur mobiliser les expatriés et les diasporas au service de l'attractivité et du développement économique. So we will have one webinar scheduled for the 19th of January, where we will discuss the mobilization of expatriates and diaspora to serve the attractiveness and economic development. We'll be very happy to have different experience, including the experience of the Irish Development Agency, as well as the French Provence Promotion, which is here in Marseille with their Home Sweet Home initiative, which lasts for many years. On aura l'expérience des Irlandais, de l'IDEA et également de Provence Promotion qui sont confirmés à ce jour pour parler de leur expérience Home Sweet Home, consistait à faire revenir des Français sur le territoire de Marseille et de sa région sur ce sujet. Et puis on aura un deuxième webinaire en février qui va tout à fait dans le sens de ce que disait Monsieur Ben Sultan à l'instant, qui est comment maximiser les retombées locales des stratégies d'attractivité, comment on travaille avec les régions avec les opérateurs dans les régions pour maximiser les retombées locales. So the second webinar will be in February on the topic of how to maximize the local impact of attractiveness strategy. So how we work and have an impact on the regions. Vous pouvez revoir tous les webinaires en vidéo sur la chaîne YouTube Anima. On va également ouvrir très prochainement une section de notre site web avec toutes les vidéos, donc vous pourrez les revoir dans une section bonne pratique du site d'Anima. Et vous pouvez d'ores et déjà cliquer sur la chaîne YouTube d'Anima. So you can always review everything on the YouTube channel of Anima. And we will soon have a dedicated web section on our website where we will find easily the video as well. Un grand merci à tous, un grand merci à Annette Numa, un grand merci à Yasser Abbas et à Bedir Ben Sartan pour leur participation. Et puis, on se revoit donc le 19 janvier pour le prochain webinaire sur les diasporas. À bientôt.